TCU loses one of their offensive linemen. He is medically retiring. Tommy Brockermeyer will no longer play football. What does that mean for the depth at O-line? What did you guys think about Josh Hoover missing spring practice, how that will affect the team? All that and more coming up next on Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're getting close to another milestone. We're at 1,080 subscribers, which, if my math is correct, means we're about 20 away from 1,100, which is really cool. So continue to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast in its audio form. Some news that came down over the weekend. I didn't get to it yesterday because if you missed yesterday's episode, talked a lot about Josh Hoover. He's going to miss spring practice with an undisclosed injury. Stephen Johnson from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram reported that. Also saw Jamie Plunkett, Jeremy Clark confirm it. Jamie Plunkett went on to say that surgery would be involved, so he's not going to be available for spring practice. Now, they do expect him in the summer, so no big concerns about this being an injury. Hopefully that will last into the summer and into fall camp. On the offensive line front, I've talked a lot about the O-line this offseason. I think it's the most important part of this offense this year. It typically, how good you are up front determines how good you're going to be anyway. But with the issues they had offensively last season with the consistency, the inability to run the ball at times, inability to be good in short yardage to the point that Kendall Briles was really running a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of reverses, trying to get out on the edge because he didn't feel comfortable running between the tackles or, the center and guard in those obvious rundowns. All that was because the O-line just didn't have it last season. They weren't good enough, and they have to get better and improve. They hit the transfer portal hard. One player that a lot of you have asked about, and I totally understand why you're so curious about him, because it was one of the big transfer guys that they got a couple off seasons ago following the national championship appearance. They landed Tommy Brockermeyer from Alabama. Now, Tommy is originally from the DFW area. He played his football at All Saints. His dad, Blake, was a great player, now works for 247 Sports. His brothers have played as well. And Tommy at one time was a top 10 player in the nation coming out of high school. I mean, like number 2 offensive lineman product in the country, 5-star, all the accolades, that type of player. That's not typically the type of player that comes through TCU, especially on the O-line or D-line. At Alabama, he dealt with some injuries. He didn't really see much playing time. And last season, didn't see any playing time, ended up having a back injury, had to have surgery and sat out the majority of the season. And it came to light this weekend. Jeremy Clark had the report that he will be medically retiring from football. So Tommy Brockermeyer hanging it up. He's battled injuries for most of his college career. Again, former 5-star player out of Fort Worth All Saints, went to Alabama. Then TCU picked him up, and it just didn't work out. I mean, first off, best of wishes to him. I hope that he can find, another passion that he can really throw himself into. TCU is going to honor a scholarship, which is good on the coaching staff, good on the university to do that. And I hope wherever he kind of transitions to next will be a good fit and a good thing for him. And I hate that he's dealing with injuries because obviously that's something that you can't control. And it's just unfortunate. I mean, he had a ton of talent. Physically, he was built like an NFL type of lineman. It just didn't really see the field much. And that's such a physical position. You have to be in good health and in great shape to play at a high level there. So I think it takes a lot of self-realization and honestly some courage to be like, hey, this is just not working out. I need to move on. Now it's a hit on the depth piece. I don't really know how much the coaching staff was preparing for him to contribute this season. A few of you had asked me about him this offseason, and I was kind of like, well, I would temper my expectations. Anytime you have somebody dealing with a back injury or coming off a season-ending surgery when they already haven't played a lot. I mean, it wasn't like Tommy was a guy who had a ton of college experience from a snaps perspective and then dealt with some injuries and was trying to work his way back into playing shape. He just hadn't seen the field much in college at this point. But I did think if he was healthy, he was possibly one of those guys that was in the mix at one of the tackle spots. I feel like Bless Harris is going to be there at left tackle most likely. And Mike Nichols is a guy that's returning who could be on the other side. Some other intriguing names that are on the roster right now Carson Bruno coming in from Law Tech. He played tackle at Louisiana Tech. There's been talk about him maybe transitioning to the inside, but we'll see where he fits. Robbie Rochester is another name to know. Robbie transferred in from UConn a couple seasons ago, and he played some in 2023. Last season, he was injured. He played some in 2022. Last season, 2023, he had a medical redshirt because he was injured. And then in 2021, as a freshman at UConn, got in a few games. He's from South Lake Carroll originally, and I'm not sure what his health status is, but I think that's another name to know as far as possibly competing for one of those tackle spots. But there's not a ton of proven guys and proven commodities there. And Mike Nichols is another player who has dealt with injuries in the past. So, I would love to see him on the field, but I'm not sure what his health status is and what's going to look like there either. Remington Strickland might be another name to know. He coming over from Texas A&M, was kind of in the 2 deep and 3 deep the last few seasons in College Station. Maybe a move over here is better for him, continue to grow and develop, possibly just a better fit in this O-line room. But it's going to be an open competition there at one of those tackle spots. And the real key here is, as I said before, you got to find the best 5 guys that are going to work together and get the job done. And last offseason, into spring camp and into the fall, A.J. Ricker talked a lot about position flex, and they were sliding guys around and playing dudes at different spots. That can be an advantage for you if you can mix and match a little bit. But I hope there is more stability this season in the different roles, just because I think the more reps you can get these guys in practice and the more opportunities you can get them in specified positions, then it's going to be better for the continuity of the team. You also got a couple SMU transfers that are going to be coming in this weekend on official visits reportedly, and that would be huge if you could land somebody. I think Howard Sampson was one of those tackles that you landed before the year or before spring practice and off-season stuff started up. And then he transfers out to North Carolina. Marcus Bryant is a name to know, though, from SMU, was on their roster last year, was an All-American Conference player. And so he's got a lot of attention and a lot of different opportunities. It's not going to be a slam dunk that he lands at TCU, but some big visits with him. And then also Branson Hickman, who I think would be – he's not a tackle, he's a center. Marcus Bryant's actually a tackle, so that would help at that specific position. But then also along the O-line, Branson Hickman is a guy who has played center for most of his career. And if you can put him there, then I think you can also sort of slide some guys around, because you'll at least have that spot locked up moving forward. So big official visits this weekend, and TCU continues to try to build some depth on the O-line. But right now, Tommy Brockermeyer, best of luck to him. He's not going to be playing, though, this upcoming season, dealing with some injuries, and decides he's going to medically retire. When we come back, a lot of you had a reaction to the Josh Hoover news, so we'll discuss that. Also, TCU basketball in action on Friday. TCU baseball picks up a win against you. Well, that's still to come here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Okay, I want to tell you about one of our new sponsors and a really cool deal they have going on. Great opportunity to join Bettor Together. If you've never heard of Bettor Together, are you tired of the daily fantasy grind? Have you tried some daily fantasy apps in the past and you're like, I don't really like this. This is not a good fit for me. Or do you get frustrated every time you fill out a bracket because you just struggle? And by Saturday afternoon, or maybe even like Friday afternoon, you're sitting there like, man, my bracket's already busted. A couple of my Final Four teams are gone. I lost some teams in the Elite Eight. There's no reason to even follow this anymore. Bettor Together offers a really cool experience for existing daily fantasy players with a twist. You can play with a friend or a teammate. It provides a sense of camaraderie and enhances the social experience of watching sports. Join the latest daily fantasy platform where teamwork triumphs talent, and you can play with your friends, not against them. Pick more or less on real-time player stats, strategize with your partner and boost your odds, and climb the leaderboard together. So grab a friend and join the social daily fantasy movement. Download Bettor Together. And again, that's Bettor, Bettor, Bettor Together from the App Store, and sign up using the promo code Locked On for a free $5 entry into any NCAA basketball contest. Remember that code is Locked On, and remember the app is Bettor Together, Bettor, because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. Again, that's Bettor. Download the Bettor Together app today and get an opportunity to play with your friends, take some bets on different NCAA tournament games, and it's the perfect time to join at Bettor Together. Download that app in the App Store today. Also want to talk to you about eBay Motors. If you need parts for your vehicle, you can't mess around with things like that. And if you're like me and you struggle to know, okay, what part is right for my car? Is this going to fit correctly? Is this going to help my engine, or is this going to help my motor run cleanly? Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy, and also what keeps your ride alive. eBay Motors does everything you need to maintain your vehicle or level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your ride, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. All the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. Yesterday's show in segment 1, we talked a lot about Josh Hoover reportedly not going to be available for spring practice. And so, it's significant, right? Like, it's not the end of the world. It's not doom or gloom. But at least from my perspective, one big reason for optimism for me going into this next season for TCU football, along with the schedule becoming somewhat easier, and just it felt like there was a renewed sense of urgency that Coach Dykes and the staff had going into the season after falling on their face a little bit last season. But a lot of that optimism was placed in the fact that, Josh Hoover would have a full off season of opportunities to continue to learn this offense, get the verbiage down more, where it becomes more muscle memory. And a lot of that had to do with just getting reps. And he can still get some of those reps on his own once he's healthy outside of the context of practice, but it's really impossible to replace full speed practice reps like that. And so it's just a bummer that he's not going to be able to go through spring practice with the offense. And so I asked, are you worried about Josh Hoover missing spring ball? Matt Clark said that could be devastating. We need Hoover to build chemistry with McAllister and Dabney along with other receivers. I hope I'm wrong, but if I were a betting man, I would subtract 1 to 2 wins because of this. Possibly. I don't know if it's that dire of a situation, but I totally understand your concerns. And I think you hit the nail on the head with the idea of you got to build chemistry with these receivers. Because we saw last season there were a lot of issues with the offense, but one of them just seemed to be miscommunication between the receivers and Chandler Morris. They weren't thinking the same things. They didn't have the same things in mind. There's a lot of reading the defense, reacting to how the defense is set up, choice routes, those types of things. And if you don't have good chemistry with your receiving core, with your tight ends, as you said, like Drake Dabney, that can really put you behind the 8 ball. I guess one thing I would say is you play Stanford at the beginning of the year. Hopefully that's a game that you can handle. And you get your FCS opponent. And then I think you take on UCF after that before SMU. So you have 3 or 4 weeks where I'm not sure you have to be clicking on all cylinders to win games. So maybe you can kind of catch that up in the first month, but it does also lead to the possibility of getting up into it early in the season just because of some miscommunication, some things that could go wrong. Tanner McKinney said it does stink, but it will help the other 2 quarterbacks learn the offense, and that's a plus. And maybe it'll make a competition or help the coaches find a way to get Haas some plays. Yeah, that is one aspect of it that I really didn't cover yesterday. But with Haas Haney coming in as a true freshman, this will give him more reps. And maybe it does open the door to the possibility of, okay, I don't think he's going to be a starter, but could you have a specialized package where you really use his ability as an athlete, his legs to make plays, and then teams also have to respect the fact that he can drop back and throw the football too. That's intriguing to me. And I think if Haas showed, we saw it with Avery Johnson last season at Kansas State. Will Howard was a starter for most of the year, but Johnson got some opportunities because he was so good, and then he showed out in games, and eventually it became clear that it was his job. I don't know if it's going to play out like this here, but it does give Haas and Ken Seals more chances to learn the offense, to get it down, and just get chemistry with the players that are going to be making plays during the game, which that's a plus. And yes, it could open the door to a competition. If one of those guys really shows out in spring camp, then it puts some pressure on Josh to make plays. And there's nothing wrong with competition. That always helps everybody. And I think we saw with last year, and we saw at times in the past few seasons with GP, as much as I like Josh Hoover, if you just predetermine who the QB is going to be going into the season, that can have some detrimental effects. It is good to have some competition in that room and just players that are pushing the starter. I really hope this isn't going to be something that persists through the season. Another listener said that's the reason why I feel like we should have taken a better QB in the portal. Josh is and definitely should be our guy, but we still need actual depth and someone the offense can run through in the event of an injury. I totally get that perspective. I mean, I would just continue to say it's really tough to land a talented QB in the portal if the guy that is coming in feels like the incumbent has a good chance to get the job. So, I mean, if you're QB and you're hitting the portal, it's because you want to play, right? And I'm not going to say it's impossible. I think TCU possibly could have and maybe should have ponied up a significant NIL package so that they could land somebody who, as you said, in the event of an injury, could come in and play or could just be more equipped to compete. But I think with the fact that Josh kind of took over the job and took the reins in the back half of the season, the type of player that was going to be most interested in coming to TCU was like somebody like Ken Seals, who has got some experience, probably kind of sees that he's most likely going to be a backup, even though he said, I'm not sure what his thought process is. He said that the coaches told him he was going to have a chance, and now he gets a chance to really show what he can do, at least through these, practices during spring. But it's just tough. It's a tough situation to be in if you're trying to bring in a talented QB and you already got somebody there that's doing the job, because most of these guys, they don't want to come in and compete. Matthew said it's significant. Josh will make the most of it. It'll be good reps for Seals and Haney, though. Yep, it will. And I agree with you. I think Josh is going to handle it well because everything we've seen from him is that he handles it. He handles these things maturely, and I think he'll do his best to be involved in the mental reps as much as he can and be involved in the quarterback room and some of the install stuff, but it's just not the same as physically getting out there and making plays. And so we'll have to see how that goes. TCU and Utah State on Friday. If you missed a little bit of the Utah State preview yesterday, Aggies are good. They're 27-6 on the season. Now, they didn't play a Power 5 opponent this year, but the Mountain West was a pretty salty conference this year. They landed 6 teams in the NCAA tournament. Colorado State suffocated Virginia yesterday in the playing game and got to what is, now round 2, but really it's round 1. And so they won that conference in the regular season. Danny Sprinkle, their first-year head coach, really impressive job. Grant Abizor is their best player. He's a double-double machine, 6'8", 250, really good frame from him, and he plays inside for the most part. He's kind of old school in that regard. So Grant Osabor, I was thinking of Nnamdi Abizar, linebacker, but Grant Osabor, they're 6'8" forward, really good player, 18 points and 9 boards per game, and again, does a lot of that damage on the inside. So big task for Emmanuel Miller and Ernest Uday on the defensive side of the ball, trying to contain him. They also have a veteran guard in Darius Brown who can shoot the 3. They shoot the 3 as a team pretty well, 33% from beyond the arc. Need Trey Tennyson to step up and be effective in this tournament. You got to space the floor and shoot if you're going to make a run in the NCAA tournament. It's going to be imperative against Utah State. It'll really be imperative if they get a matchup against Purdue in round 2. But you got to have guys that can shoot the rock and get it done. Somebody else chimed in. Big Easy on YouTube said TCU basketball is much better thanks to the transfer portal, which pretty much didn't exist under the previous coaches. So when you're giving Dixon his accolades, please tell the whole story. I mentioned yesterday that, Frogs made the tournament for the third straight season, have a chance to win a game for a third straight season. That's an incredible accomplishment. It's something I didn't think was possible 10 years ago. And so I understand the frustration with Jamie, but I think we do need to acknowledge that he got this program out of the dump and got them to a respectable place. So I guess I see your point, but I disagree with it. I always appreciate you chiming in, and please never get discouraged to say something or give your opinion just because I'm disagreeing with you. But, everybody's working with the transfer portal now. So it's an advantage for TCU in that they have the ability to go get experienced players. But, the Blue Bloods are working the portal too. Kansas went and got Hunter Dickinson this offseason, right? Like Duke and UNC and those other schools are doing this as well. So it's not like Jamie's getting access to something that the rest of the nation is not. But I see what you're saying from the standpoint of like it gave him access to talent that maybe other coaches didn't have through the years. He did make the tournament that first season or second season he was at TCU. He had some transfers, but it wasn't really in the current transfer portal format. And, he's taken advantage of it and done it well. I think, really I'd give him kudos for the way he's used the portal through the years, even though this year some of the guys he went and got haven't quite lived up to expectations. But should be fun when TCU and Utah State lock up on Friday night. That game going to be at 9 o'clock. Before we go, we'll talk some TCU baseball. Frogs get a midweek win over UTA yesterday. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team. We do it here every day. Power, passion, performance. That's what you get with the 2024 Nissan SUVs. You need to shop now at NissanUSA.com. And these new SUVs, they're like a lot of the teams that are in the tournament. The Oregon Ducks are this week's Nissan Rogue. The team absolutely surprised everyone with the power performance in the Pac-12 tournament, punching their ticket to the big dance. They say win life, go Rogue, and that's exactly what the Ducks have done. Take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go find your next big adventure at shopnissanusa.com. It's our March Madness bracket highlight. The Nissan 2024 SUVs, passion, performance, style, surprises. The Rogue surprises you because it can hold all your kids. If you're like me and you have a big family, you can put all your kids in there, all four of them. You got plenty of room, very spacious, but it's not like a minivan. It's a rugged, powerful SUV that you can drive off-road, that you can go on your next adventure in. So you don't have to feel like you're sacrificing style and coolness. You can still be a cool, fun dad like myself and have amazing style that I'm sure you can tell by my wonderful gray t-shirt that I'm wearing now if you're watching on YouTube, or my silky voice if you're listening via the podcast app. Shop now at NissanUSA.com and get into the Pathfinder, Rogue, or Armada. Perfect time to do it. March Madness starting up. Nissan, proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. TCU baseball. They took down UTA yesterday by a final score of 7-3. Frogs get the victory and over the Mavs. Mason Bigsby got the start. He went 2 innings, walked 3, struck out 1, didn't give up any runs. Mason's a guy I'd like to see more out of the bullpen. They use him a little bit in that set of games in Globe Life, but hasn't seen many appearances this year. But he throws gas, man. He throws 97, 98. And he's just got electric stuff. And I'd like to see more of him as the season continues to move on. Kirk Saarloos got ejected in this game. It was a weird game. I think it was in the 5th inning. UTA put together a few runs. There were some walks, some pass balls, pretty sloppy half inning by the Horned Frogs that led to a couple of runs. It was actually in the 6th. So it was a 4-0 lead. All of a sudden it's 4-3. And Kirk wasn't happy with the strike zone really all night. There was a play where Caden Parker came in, and it appeared that he hit a UTA batter. He threw it behind him. He had no control of the ball. It was just a bad pitch. Threw it behind his head. The UTA batter ducked down, and they ruled that it hit him, and he went to first base to load the bases. But upon review, it looks like the ball actually hit his bat. Like when he was trying to get out of the way, TCU caught a break and the ball hit his bat, so it should be a foul tip. Go back to the plate, and you got 2 strikes on you, and let's go. But they upheld the ruling that he was hit by a pitch, and that appeared like the wrong call via video replay. And so Kirk came out to talk to the umpires, and he didn't look agitated. He didn't look angry. Didn't appear that he said anything too incendiary, but they just immediately tossed him. And then he was trying to get an explanation. Another umpire, I think third base umpire, came in and slid in and kind of got in his face. And so weird moment there, but nice little bounce back win. UTA is under 500. It feels like a game that you should get a victory in. Curtis Byrne hit a home run. Ryder Robinson hit his first home run of the year. Brody Green had a nice piece of hitting. He took a slider that was down and away and just stayed with it and flared it into center field for a 2-run single that kind of put that game away and gave TCU a 7-3 lead. Would like to see more of Brody in the lineup moving forward. Ben Abelt came in and pitched a almost clean inning, got out of it. Bullpen was pretty solid last night. So I don't know how they're going to rework this rotation, or if they're going to rework this rotation. They get Oklahoma State this weekend in Stillwater. Really need a series victory. A sweep would be amazing, but that would be tough to do on the road against a good OSU team. But yeah, pitching continues to be an issue, and I think it's the biggest overarching issue for this team. Brian Caper said, pitching staff as a whole is dreadful. Really no one you can trust on a daily basis. The key to me is it's just nobody you can trust on a daily basis. They've had guys that have had good outings or good moments. But I can't even really – I think Zach Collier maybe is their most consistent guy right now. Luis Rodriguez could be in that mix too, even though he's had some struggles as well. And Jacob Langford said he's starting to get worried about baseball, not looking good. But as I said yesterday, they had a bad stretch last year and figured it out. Yeah, there's still plenty of time to figure it out. But you got to get this pitching staff figured out, because if you can't pitch, then you're just not consistently going to be good in baseball. It doesn't really matter how much you can mash. And the offense has taken kind of a turn and has been pretty quiet lately. So tough to win when, things aren't going your way. We'll be back tomorrow. Locked on Horned Frogs, your team. We do it here every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast.